Alrighty, today I'm going to show you how to get into MakeCode Arcade and start our first tutorial together. So you can find it on our ISB page right here. So I have a link right here. You can hop to it from there. But you can always go to arcade.makecode.com as well. And once you are on it once or twice, you'll probably be able to go to your history and find it up here. But this is what the main page looks like. Um, there's a whole lot of different game tutorials down here, so we'll end up doing a couple of these, but there's a whole lot of cool games that when you have some free time you can play. You can even play games that other people have made on here. There's a lot of really cool stuff. But we will be doing some of these tutorials together, and this video is going to be about this particular tutorial for this Galga game. So it looks like this right here. It's like a spaceship type of game. So we're going to go ahead and go through this together. And hopefully by doing it together, that will give you like the basics that you might need to use for the other tutorials that we'll do eventually later on too. When you click Galga, it'll open up some little options. We are going to use the blocks for everything that we do. If you're really into coding and you want to push yourself and learn some actual code languages like JavaScript or Python, you can try these, but for the most part, we're going to all use blocks. So go ahead and click that. When you open it up, it'll give you like a little intro to what this game is. So we're going to be making like a space shooter game. And let's kind of go over the overview here. This is a tutorial, so you can see all of the steps along the top. So there's 17 total steps in this game, but we'll be going every step at a time. Up here, it tells you what each step wants you to do, so the instructions for this tutorial. And one nice thing, which we'll come back to a lot, is if you click on this instruction thing, it shows you exactly what the blocks are that it wants you to pull out. So we'll come back to that in a second, but this will be really important. So over here on the left, you'll see like a little Game Boy looking thing that as we make the game, you'll see your stuff up here and there, and you can try it out and play it. You'll see in here, these are called drawers. So like each of these, as I open it, there's different things within the drawer. So like my sprite drawer has a bunch of options in here, which again, we'll come through, but there's some different things. We'll end up going through a couple of these throughout the tutorial, but just kind of pointing this out. And notice how they're all color coded. So you can see I've got like a blue sprites, and when it tells me, for example, to make a sprite and it's up here in blue, chances are you can just kind of follow all the color coded things and look in the blue sprite drawer if you need to find it. All right, so let's read the instructions. We're going to go through this whole tutorial together. This might be a two-part video, but I'm going to kind of walk you through it just so you can kind of have someone talking you through the process, right? So it tells us up here, add code to create a sprite. Notice it's blue, so we're going to go to the blue sprite drawer. And then we're going to rename it to space plane. Remember, if you're like, well, what am I supposed to be doing here? Well, you can also click and it'll kind of show you what block you're supposed to go for, right? So we're going to grab the code in the sprites, and it's this one right here that says set a sprite on the screen, right? And again, if you're not sure which one to ever grab, you're going to have to sometimes check out the little tutorial thing up here. I can click it and I can see, oh, it's this sprite, this block right here. That's what I'm supposed to grab. All right, so it tells us that we're supposed to rename the sprite to space plane. So you can see right here, instead of it by default is called my sprite, I can click this little pull down and I can pick this rename variable. So I'm going to go ahead and call this what it tells me to. So I'm going to call it space plane. Hit OK. And then it tells me up here to draw a plane or some kind of flying object in it. And again, if I click it, you'll see like, oh, I'm supposed to draw a little something like that. Obviously, it doesn't have to look exactly like that, but that's kind of cool looking thing. So the way that we're going to do it is we're going to click this little gray box, and it opens up a picture editor. So take a couple minutes. You can always pause the video if you want and draw out some kind of little plane. Notice I'm on the pencil tool, and there's all sorts of different colors. So it's kind of like creating pixel art, if you've ever done that or seen pixel stuff. So you can pick different colors and kind of draw whatever you want. Maybe I'll try to make like a little wing or something coming off here. Again, I don't really care what yours looks like. Just do your best to draw some kind of little spaceship looking design. I'm kind of drawing like a little blaster off the front or something, kind of a little wing, maybe a little tail or something. I don't know. It doesn't really matter, but draw some kind of little shape. And when you're done, there's a little done button in the bottom right. So take some time, draw a little shape, and then when you're done, hit done. So you'll notice now that when you go back to the main game, and I've done this first step, my little plane is now appearing on the screen. So we're going to move to the next step. So when you're done, I can just hit next or click the button up there and do the next step. So now it says set the space plane to stay in the screen. Again, just by telling me this, that doesn't really mean a whole lot to me, because I was like, oh man, what now? How do I do that? Again, if you're like confused about how to do something and you don't want to go look on your own, remember that you can just click up here and it tells me what block I need. So you can see over here, oh, it says set space plane to stay in screen. So I'm going to go back and look through my options. And again, because these are blue up here, I'm probably going to start by looking at my blue area. So I'm going to look around, and you're going to look through and think about, oh, here's the block, set my sprite to stay in the screen. So I'm going to take that out. And again, I'm going to make sure I'm setting it to what it looks like in this like instruction up here. Okay, so right here, see how I need to make sure my sprite matches what I called it before. So I'm going to say I need to change my sprite, and I need to be on space plane so that these match. And I need to turn stay on screen on by clicking this button, so that way my plane can't like go off screen basically. Okay, so I've set that. I think I'm good. I'm going to go to the next step. It tells me we want to start the game with a few lives, so set life to 3. Notice how this color is kind of like pinkish gray, right? So that, again, if I click, oh, set life to 3, that color looks like it's in this info tab. So here's where I'm going to start looking. Sure enough, I've got this option to set life to 3. So again, I'm going to drag it in. And again, obviously it tells me to start it to 3, but you could change this to whatever you wanted. So as we get into more games and you're kind of customizing your stuff, all this stuff can be customized and you can change the values to whatever you want. So we'll go on to the next step, step 5. It says now move the space plane with the controller buttons and change the sensitivity of Vx and Vy to 200. Vx and Vy, technically, I don't know if you know your math, it's X and Y axis. So I think by Vx it's talking about the velocity of X and Y, meaning like how fast you go up, how fast you go right, how fast you go left, etc. So again, if I want to check on how to do this, I can click up here and see what it's telling me. And again, because this is like kind of an orangey color, I would assume, oh, well, I'm setting up controller buttons, so it's probably going to be under the orange controller tab. So I'm looking for this move sprite with buttons, you know, Vx, Vy. So here we go, click in the controller, and I'm going to grab this out. I'm going to drop it in. Again, I need to make sure I'm controlling the right sprite. And a sprite, guys, is just like the little character or the little design that you have on the screen. So I want to make sure I'm on the space plane. So I want to move my space plane with certain buttons. And notice, guys, like if I look at the example, it has like this thing about how to set it in like different numbers for X and Y. But over here, hey, why isn't that showing? Well, there's a little plus sign. So that sometimes you'll see a plus sign that can like extend out, and then you can set in specific numbers. So we'll go ahead and do what it tells us to do. It tells us to put these both to 200. So that means how fast my plane is moving along the x-axis, which is left and right, and the y-axis, which is up and down. So if you wanted yours to go slower, I guess you could make it a lower number, but we're going to stick with what the tutorial tells us. All right, next step. So we're on step 6 now. It says, add an event to run code that when I push the A button, when we push the A button, it's going to create a projectile sprite, meaning like a little dart or whatever, that will launch from the space plane. And it also gives us some sensitivity options. So that's kind of a lot of instructions. Again, sometimes when there's like a lot of instructions and it's telling you a bunch of stuff to do, take a deep breath, breathe, click the button up here, and kind of see what this should look like. So we start with a button press. Okay, so we're going to, again, look at the colors, right? So this red color or this orangey color, right? I'm going to start with a controller option. And again, here's a thing for on a button press. Now notice this is its own separate little tab. I can't like attach it in here. We're going to have its own little code block floating out on the side. So if I click back here, actually I'll move this out of the way. So on a button pressed, we need to set a dart projectile to shoot from the plane. So let's go back and look. I believe that's under the sprite one. Again, sometimes you're going to have to look around for some of these. So if you're not sure where it is, and you might have to just look through. So it's talking about setting this dart projectile. So if I go back in the sprite option, we're going to take this option right here for set a projectile. And then there's a bunch of options in here that we'll edit here in a second. So again, if we look at it, it told us that we want to name that projectile to dart. So we're going to do kind of what we did to call it a space plane earlier. So we're going to go in here and we're going to rename this variable and we're going to call it dart. Because again, that's what the tutorial told us to call it. Again, it shows us in the example that we want to draw what we want this projectile to look like. Okay, so we're going to do that real quick. So we're going to draw whatever we want our little like laser beam dart looking thing to shoot looking like. Okay, so again, do some kind of dart picture. Again, it doesn't matter what it looks like to me. Maybe I'll draw like a little arrow looking thing. Oops. By the way, in this, if you ever make a mistake, you can hit Control Z to undo, or you can click on these little like undo buttons down here at the bottom. This is undo and this is redo if you want to like fix it. So you can see I made a little dart icon. And again, you can kind of do whatever you want. It doesn't matter, right? So I made a little dart. I'm going to hit done. Now I've got a little thing that I'm going to shoot out. Again, I want this dart projectile to shoot from my space plane, right? And it tells us we want to make sure that it's my space plane that's doing the shooting here. So I'm going to pick my little pull down, pick space plane, and it tells me up here again what to set the velocity to. So my x should be 200 and my y should be 0. And that makes sense, right? Because the x-axis is the left and right. So by setting x to 200, that means it's going to shoot to the right really fast. And I don't want my projectile to go up and down at all. So the y should be 0. So it's going right, but it's not going up and down. So when I shoot something, it's just going straight in front of me. All right. So at this point, let's just test our game real quick, right? So over here on the left in this little menu, see how now when I push the A button, it's shooting my little dart, right? So you can either click it or there's controls that you can do on your keyboard. So you could just like click this if you want. You can also hit WASD, like your W key, your A and your D, SD key, basically. That moves your little your character around. And I think your space bar, yeah, I'm trying to remember. Your space bar is another way that you can hit this A key. And I think, I kind of forget your B key, but I can figure it out later. But there's a way that you can shoot your B key eventually later. But basically right now, you should be able to move your plane around and hit your space bar. And you can see I've now set my plane's motion. And that was what I did right here. I made my plane move with the buttons to go X and Y 200. And then I have it so when I hit my button, it is shooting a projectile out. Okay, so we're going to stop this video right here. And then in the next video, we're going to go through the rest of the steps. So hopefully this helps to kind of see the flow of things. And I mean, the same kind of process will be for the rest of it. We're going to go to the next one. We're going to like check the instructions and we're just going to build this game slowly but surely. All right. So I will see you in the next video. Hopefully this helps, and tune back in to finish up the game next time.